Hello, welcome to Staring Down the Storm, Autism Advocacy in America. I'm your host, Tabitha Ziegler. Hello, everybody. We have the opportunity to have a very interesting guest today. I'm going to let him introduce himself. Go ahead, Chad.
Yes, my name is Chad Ennis. I'm an educator, writer, and I'm currently the founder of Off Label, where I'm helping professionals with 10 years of experience build a business out of the skills and interests that they already have.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
How long have we been doing this?
Well, unofficially, I kind of started doing it when I was like on my weird kind of pilgrimage across Portugal, Turkey, and Thailand. I was actually working with Willow Sana. Do you remember her from Camp Indie? And
I didn't have a chance to meet everybody, so maybe I didn't meet her.
Yeah, I think that was the year you actually didn't. Oh, no, I think I don't know. But
you
she
know how
she
it
was there.
is. There were a lot of us.
I know. It's
Yeah.
a revolving door. So that, and then I was also working with Ray and Lauda Blakeney as well. So I was getting coaching from them, and
Cool.
like I was just like traveling and just seeing like tons of people that just felt like they just couldn't do anything with what they had going on. So I essentially was just guinea pigging people like in hostels and like random bars and restaurants I was in. And then when I came back here, I started guinea pigging it more so on like the kids that I work with here at the schools. So I was just like, all right, let's just do it, because like after a while, I think I'm just like being busy without actually doing the real thing, you know?
So let's talk a little bit more about your travels.
Yes.
Maybe we should start. Let's do this. Let's start more with the origin story, because as we know, we all are a bit different type of people. And sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes I think it helps people like build the picture of like, how did this person get to where they are and do what they're doing? So let's start from baby Ennis.
Baby Ennis. Oh, you're wanting me to go like deep.
Well, because when we were little kids, we were probably also like a little bit different.
Oh, I was so different. I mean, like I think when I was about 5, my parents knew that like they may have taken the wrong baby from the hospital. You know what I mean? because like they came from Jamaica, right? Like they came. Well, I don't know when my dad specifically got here, but I know that my mother came here in like '88. And
so you're first generation American.
I am. So like lots of pressure, lots of damage, as you know. But yeah.
Well, I'm the opposite. I have like the collateral damage of like the multi-generational craziness that is the US. So I'm coming from the opposite perspective of like people being here forever and then watching the destruction across multiple generations. But yes, I'm with you. I'm following you.
Yeah. I mean that definitely is a different flavor. I don't know if either one is preferable, in terms of like the damage that you receive.
No, but we are both advocates, and that is what is important about that story.
For sure, 100%. So they came. So my mother definitely came here '88. I think my dad was kind of like shortly after that. When I was a kid, I mean, I was just very strange. They said I used to talk like an old man because I used to spend a lot of time with my grandfather. So and like in the Jamaican patois as well. So like it was just like, okay, like maybe we should separate the two of you.
I also was like that. My grandpa was my favorite person. So we have that in common.
Exactly. Like I don't know what it is, but even until today,
old souls.
But it was more than that, like he was like the quintessential image of what I thought a man should be. And I feel that way even today. You know what I mean? He was just like so tender, so caring. He wasn't my biological grandfather, so he just like adopted everybody and brought them to the US. And like, when his daughter passed away a couple years back, I like read the pamphlet, the program for the funeral, and like I found out all these things about him, about how he was like married before my grandmother and he adopted even more kids than I had known. So Yeah, he was just really special. You know what I mean? And
Mhm, mhm,
I try to model myself as best as I can. He died when I was pretty young, when I was
mhm.
about 5. Um, so where am I? You're gonna have to like wrangle me in
No,
because
no, you're good.
yeah,
So we were talking about your grandfather and
yeah.
how he made a massive impression on you about what it means to be a man.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And just like, he was just so he was such a symbol of love in a way that I haven't seen again, you know?
Mhm, mhm,
But yeah, I mean, growing up, yeah, I was always a kid that was like a little different. You know what I mean? Like everybody was coming home and, they were asked the questions you want to be, a doctor, a lawyer, this, that, and the other thing. I mean, that was the hope for my parents, I think.
mhm,
And I
mhm,
was like, yeah, I
mhm.
want to be
I
a
think
marine
that's like the
biologist.
immigrant dream. I keep hearing that. Like,
Yeah,
you
it
must be a
is.
doctor, a lawyer.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear signal, you know what I mean,
Mhm.
for like, you've made it, you've done that
Status.
basically. Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
And yeah, I came home and I was like, I want to be a marine biologist, and like they could not. They were like, we don't even know what that is. How do you know what that is? And I'm like, I don't know. It just seems right. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I wanted to be a veterinarian.
well, yeah, like, you know what I'm saying? Like I don't know,
Mhm.
animals just seem to be more, I don't know, they're just fun to be around.
Predictable.
Predictable, yeah. But, I don't know. I think that the thing that was extra with it was the fact that, um, it was also like the unknown, Like ever since I was very young, I always had this obsession with the unknown, and even until now, I mean, up the ranks, like, when I moved on from marine biology, like I got really into music. And I played, saxophone for years, you know what I mean? And like even I got to the point where I was actually under the tutelage of David DeJesus, who now has a residency at Birdland on Sundays, in the city. So, I had like a real exposure to that. But like it was like that whole embracing the unknown and organizing chaos. Same thing with like writing. I always really had like a love of those things because it was just so adventurous and so wild, and you don't necessarily know what's going to happen. And I think that, growing up and finding out that I actually, had ADHD, it actually made more sense as to why I was that way. But yeah, I think it definitely threw my family for a loop without question. Yeah.
So, did your family travel a lot?
No. Um, Not really. I mean, my dad always had aspirations of traveling. Like, he was known as that guy growing up, like he was going to be the guy who made it out of Jamaica and, went everywhere. And he's traveled like a good amount. I can't say that he hasn't. And then my mother, she's not really a traveler, but um she used to, like, sell clothes in Venezuela, like, way back in the day. Like, it just randomly came up recently. She's like, "Yeah, I used to just, like, sell fabrics and stuff when I was, when I was younger, and I would travel to, like, throughout the Caribbean and go to Venezuela and stuff and do that." I was like, "Oh, I didn't know." She has a lot of stories that she never really tells, both really, but again, that's like a immigrant thing, I think.
Right. So, what did you major in college?
So I doubled in marketing and psychology. Um,
Okay.
yeah, in Hartford, actually, Hartford, Connecticut.
Mhm. Do you find that helpful now?
Um, I would say the chaos of my work history was more of an education. I think the fact that I chose those 2, it it was one of those things that you're doing, but you don't know why you're doing it, but your life makes sense, like, you know what I mean, in reverse. Like you were always angling towards this way, you just didn't see everything come together, kind of thing.
Yeah, I can see that. I've had a lot of conversations recently about the humanities, for example, and why it's important to get more people in leadership that study
Yes,
somehow
I
in the
agree.
humanities.
I agree.
And I'm starting to see this through line because my degree is in languages, literatures, and linguistics.
Okay, nice. Yeah.
And so I was always drawn to languages, but initially I started out in advertising in French. So
Interesting.
there's like interesting, I find a lot of people that I talk to, there's always this multi-potentialite
Yes.
thing
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know what that was or what to call it until someone at camp was
Yes.
like, "Do you know about multi-potentialites?" And I was like,
What
what's
was it,
that?
Vanessa?
I think it was Ted.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I think it
Yeah.
was Ted. But yes, to camp, and for those of us, like for those out there who are listening who don't know what we're talking about, there is this essentially like adult camp for very interesting people
Okay.
that they called
Awesome.
Camp Indie.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that specifically because there's so many characters and we all
Sure.
do so many different
Yeah.
things. So for me, I thought the through line was like, wow, this is like an encyclopedia of interesting people.
True.
Because everybody that you ran into, everybody was doing something different.
Right.
Everybody had a different skill set.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was trying to build something.
Yeah.
And what was cool about that camp was it just brought us all together.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a very like basic general explanation for the magic that happened
Right.
there.
And I think it's probably
You know?
the best way to do that, because I think if you get too granular, you just kind of miss it entirely. You know what I mean? I think for me, I think one of the ways that I would really describe it, at least in terms of how I feel, or how I felt rather, is it's like people who don't feel legible in like a normal setting. It's like where they felt understood. You know what I mean? Like I didn't really meet too many people that were doing something that was like immediately legible, like just in like general conversation or in the marketplace or anything like that. And it was such a beautiful thing, because you really got to see, I got to see that, there's far more available to you once you kind of like try something else. Like it'll feel like failure maybe, but when you find that other people do it, it's not so bad. And I'm like very grateful for those experiences that I've had there.
I think also for me, it was like a liberation moment.
Yeah.
It was like acknowledgement and liberation,
Sure.
finding community. Lots of people that were actively trying to think outside the box
Hmm.
because they did not want to be constricted
Hmm.
by the current rules of society because they thought they were broken.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree. And
Yeah.
and I mean, like, especially seeing you, I mean, like, we go back a little bit, you know what I mean? So it's like,
Well, I'll let you tell people how you met me and
y-
how this evolved because this is
yeah.
years in the making.
Like I met you in waves, yeah. Like we were both in Trav's cohort when we were kind of working out our business ideas, and I think then I was working out this kind of like book therapy idea or something like that. And like you were there, but you were just like a black screen. But like Trav was always like, oh my god, like like this person like has such an amazing story. This, and I'm like, well, it'd be nice if I like knew who she was. And then, things went on. And then I think I saw you towards like the last couple days, like you did turn on your camera. But we like officially.
Because most of the time, I'm pretty sure I was like feeding babies or changing
Yeah.
diapers or whatever.
Yeah, you were always in the
Hmm.
thick of things.
Hmm.
And I was like, wow, I really want to meet this person. And I think the first time we like actually met was like at camp. And like
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know who like who are you? You're like, no, 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 like, you're working on your book idea, right? I'm like, who are you? And then like, you introduce
Yeah.
yourself. I was like, oh, okay. And like, it was so nice to like finally meet you. And then I just like I remember like it was when we had like the dance floor thing or whatever. And you just like absolutely like busted my chops out of nowhere. You were like, yeah, so like did you get that idea started? I was like, nah. You're like, yeah, that's kind of weak. Like you could, you should probably. I'm like, what? Like, you know what I mean?
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure I was also tossing out tequila
Yeah.
shots
I mean,
because I
yeah,
was like,
yeah,
listen,
yeah. I know.
we need to get this party started because this is supposed to be
Yeah,
fun.
but I mean, you just totally caught me like, left field with that one. You were like, yeah, like, come on, like, you could have done this already. And it was
Well, I
nice.
think I was coming from a different level, right?
Yeah.
Not I was not trying to bust your chops in the way of like, oh,
Yeah,
shame.
I know.
I was
Yeah.
like, you can do this.
Right.
Like, you're a smart guy.
Yeah.
It's a good idea. Like, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. And I think that was coming from a place of love, right?
It
Because
was,
here I
yeah.
am
Mhm.
with these 3 little kids. And I'm like, if I didn't have these 3 little kids,
Yeah,
I know what I could do.
sure.
Not that I don't want my kids. That is not the
No, I
point.
get that,
But
yeah.
for those of you that were in it, and I
Mhm.
was like, right, you're not married. You're
Mhm.
not in a significant relationship. You don't have children right now.
Right.
Like, these are not things that are holding you back per se. So
Mhm.
then why aren't you doing the thing?
Sure, yeah.
And then I was so happy when I heard you're like, I'm going to Portugal. And I was like, hoorah, buddy.
Yeah, and it was only supposed to be 3 months, and I ended
Mhm.
up
And then
going
how long did you stay?
like 9, 10 months. Like, not
Mhm.
even in Portugal, like, I just kept on hopping on a plane, like, Portugal was on fire at the end of my 3 months, and I was like, "I don't wanna go home." Like, I don't wanna go back to the States, like, like, I wanted to do this for a while, so, yeah, like, every day in Portugal, the sky was, like, orange from all the smoke and everything, and, yeah, I was just like, "Well, I really love James Baldwin, and I know that for, like, a decade, he spent time in Turkey because it gave him a certain identity correction." And I was like, "Well, that's interesting. I wanna know what that's
Now,
about."
I didn't know that he spent that long of a time in
Oh,
Turkey.
yeah. It was like 10 years off and on. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
He wrote Another Country in Istanbul, actually.
I feel like I'm in this period of relearning because
Yeah. Same, actually.
there's so much purposely, right, that
Yeah.
they don't teach us in school.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you're curious and you get that bug, whether it's, I want to read or I want to
Mhm.
travel or maybe I want to do both,
Mhm.
and then you start to look into these authors, like even if it's like a Hemingway, whatever.
Sure.
That part's not important, but someone that interests you that traveled and wrote about other places,
Right.
which there are a ton.
Mhm.
Then you're like, wow, people have kind of always been doing this thing that
Correct.
I want to do.
Correct. Yeah. With and it was, like, more difficult, you know what I mean? And they were still managing it, which is like inspiring, but it also puts like a certain type of tension on you as well, where it's just like, all right, like, you know what I mean? Like the door has never been wider, so give it a shot. But yeah, yeah. So I went to Turkey, and it was just like an absolute like psychological like flip and tumble, and you kind of have to like turn up all your like survival mechanisms, so like life and living feel very different, like there's a certain intensity that comes with it. And it was a time where I wasn't really useful to anybody, like I don't know if but like I'm a conservator for my brother who has like a pretty severe mental illness, but he's doing okay right now. um and like ever since I was young, I always had like these kind of like weird responsibilities that have been particularly intense, and it was just like to just not have any of those roles, to not have any of those um any of those responsibilities in the way that I've had them. And yeah, it just put me in a very like weird nosedive. But as maybe after the first month passed, like I really started to get what he was talking about. It's like you're in a place that has like none of the American symbols or anything like that. It's like, you know, people survive outside of your normal architecture, whether it's like physical or mental, and like they still continue to live on, So it's like you won't die in doing it. And
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
like it was a very pivotal moment for me. You know what I mean?
So I've got a question. I'm just going to rip this Band-Aid off
Yeah.
because I'm that person lately. Being a black man in America
Yeah.
and then traveling to another country as a black man,
Yeah.
because I know you're talking about like there was this sort of awakening,
Sure. Yeah.
and you were chasing that maybe sort of a similar experience from Baldwin, sort of, or you were just using it as a springboard
I was
to
I,
try it.
I was using it as a hypothesis. You know what I
I
mean?
gotcha.
Like I wanted to test it out. Like, like okay, like how do I know that it wasn't just a fluke kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like being a black man is very different depending on the geography. I think it's very easy to assume that it's just one thing. Um, but like in Turkey, it was very different because like where it fell in terms of hierarchy was different. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't necessarily off rip a black man per se, right? I was like the American, and then maybe I
Yeah.
black. You know what I mean?
Well, the reason I ask
Yeah,
is because I've been having a lot of these type of
yeah,
conversations with people that like they leave the US, right?
yeah,
And I don't think people understand
hmm,
until they leave.
yeah,
And it can be a myriad of things. Like for
yeah.
me, right? Like it might be that, oh, I'm a woman or I'm a gay woman
Sure,
or I'm traveling maybe as a single female or
sure. Yeah,
something
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
I mean, regionally,
Right.
it could be like, oh, I might be one of the only ones with blue eyes. And
Sure.
then that's interesting and draws attention to me in a
Yeah,
way that maybe like is different,
yeah.
you know? So I guess that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, so many people, I think, there are all these prejudices sort of like pre-baked into us of like,
Correct.
oh, fear, right? Like,
Yeah,
don't do this, don't do that, don't go here,
yeah,
don't go there, don't hang with these people.
yeah.
And then when we leave the US, we're like, oh, all of this functions differently elsewhere.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, yeah, you're 100%. But and I think it like there's always going to be like some category you're operating in that is going to be challenged once you take yourself out of the general context that you normally find yourself in. I wouldn't even say it's something so original to me, being black, or something so unique to be being black, because other people have talked to me about some form of it in whatever different way. I just think that, like, like you really get to see like the undercurrents that really operate in you. You know what I mean? And a lot of the time you operate on assumptions, right, that like are true enough somewhere and maybe not true at all, or like less true wherever you're going. And it if you choose to travel in the way where you have to confront things, like it causes you to be more nuanced. And I think this is why like a lot of people who really like travel amongst people, and they really want to break bread with like, people that they've never met before, whatever, they usually come back to their starting context, and they're just confused for years. You know what I mean? Because it's one of those things where you get awareness, but then you have to figure out the now what. Now what do you do with that awareness? Which is like, I think it's kind of like the problem that we generally have today, right? Like people are more conscious about how they're functioning more than anything else, right? And like, you're just overwhelmed with the information about, how you are, why you're this way, et cetera. Like, mommy did issues, daddy issues, et cetera. Like you could just go on forever. But if you don't have like, okay, like what does this metabolize into? It becomes like pretty brutal on you. And I don't think most people understand that unless they've been through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had many conversations lately about depravity,
Yeah.
right? Like
Hmm.
the type of things that are going on in the US right now, like it seems new,
Hmm.
but for people that know
Yeah.
history or for people that have friends from different backgrounds, different regions,
Yeah.
whatever, like I am pushing education, right?
Hmm.
Like know your
Yeah.
history, the true history, seek out people to give you different
Yeah.
viewpoints, critical thinking.
Hmm.
And to really like constantly put yourself in this position of uncomfortability and pushing the bar. And for me personally, I feel like that's where I've grown the most,
Yeah.
right? Like, so now that I'm campaigning and going
Mhm.
around and like, I never thought I would do any of
I
this, right?
know. It's amazing.
But I know it's strange. It's so
Yeah, but
strange.
it's so awesome though. Yeah.
But I'm leading as a human
Yeah.
because I feel I'm a humanist
Yeah.
first. I've had all these different experiences, right? And so I'm trying to bring that to the table in a way that entices people, not so much to me,
Hmm.
but to the idea of things,
Yeah.
right? Because some people right now will talk about things like, oh, like, let's come together, let's have a meeting place, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, that's all good and fine. But you can't do that if you don't do the work first and if you don't know your history first.
Mm-hmm.
So even if somebody didn't teach you about like Tulsa, for example,
Sure.
that's okay, right? Like we learn in ways. We have to not be too mad about like, hey, it's not my fault that someone didn't teach me about that.
Yeah.
It is a problem that people chose to not put that in curriculum for students to learn.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that I can't learn it. So when someone interesting comes across your path and they're like, hey, have you read this book? Did you hear about this or whatever? That gives you the opportunity to broaden your horizons in a
Yeah.
way. And then you have the like obligation to teach others.
Yeah. And I think you bring up a good point too. It's like you have to I say this reluctantly, but like I do mean it mostly. Like you have to like allow for people to not know things and not hate them for it. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you're right. It's like it's just not a part of the program. You know what I mean? It's like some for a lot of people, like it's not even in their like wheelhouse. Like for example, if I could have a story time. There was one day that I got off early from work, but like sometime during COVID, right? And I went to the library and I had bought like a whole bunch of books in Portuguese, right? Because like I was learning it at the time, etc. And this woman like catches my eye, right? And she was like a woman from Missouri. And she's like, where are you from? And I'm just like, yeah, like I'm from here. She's like, no, but like where are you from? Like I see the books. And I'm like, no, like I'm just I'm from here, but I'm just learning. And then, we sat down and she's like, would you mind like, sitting down with me, in this bar with me, like, like I'll get you a drink. My husband's buying, right? So I was like, yeah, sure. I sat down and, we both order, our drinks and then the waitress goes away and she says, I just want to let you know before we get started, I identify myself as a white supremacist. And I was just like, okay. Um, I could have got up. You know what I mean? Like I don't think anybody would.
You're like, shit.
Exactly, like 100%. But like it was a free Guinness. You know what I mean? And like, you know, I wanted to know what it was about, right? Because of there's this man, jazz man from down south. I believe his name is Daryl White. I think that's his name. And he is a person, he's a black man who is, gone around the South, and he is actually like, converse with Klan members. And like, through that engagement, some of them have actually like, I guess you could say defected from being a part of the Klan. And like, they've tried to make their lives, turn their life around for the better, whatever that may mean. I didn't necessarily feel like I had that capability, but I just wanted to know, what that was about. And we sat down for maybe like 3.5 hours, and it was like a fascinating thing. And there were so many things that we actually intersected on. In terms of just like life and like, some of the difficulties that we had and whatever. It's just that she chose, to believe in a false superiority. Yeah, she was using that as like a cure all, for all the things that she had. But I mean, like she went through brutal things in life, and like it was just the only thing that she could grab onto. I don't think that's a justification. It's just what it is. And then like, towards the end, I just asked her like, well, why? Like why do you need to sit here? She's like, well, I'm tired of reading books, you know, on it. And she was just like, she's like, I have 2 kids, and my daughter, she's like as far left as they come. Like she tries to get away from me. She hates me or whatever. But, as she was born and like she was growing up, like, a lot of the things that she said like made me wonder, but I could not let go of the things that I had. I mean, I've already come too far. But she's just like, she's just like, I just want to try to see, if I could believe something different. And, I thought it was honest, and like ultimately we didn't come away with anything. I don't think she's become a better person, or anything like that. It wasn't my job to do it. Um, but it was just like it was a real profound learning experience for me. You know what I mean? Like what people will go to just to like feel better about living in life. You know what I mean? And like it wasn't forgiveness, but it was like an understanding. Like you were just grasping at straws. It's all you had. You know, it's what you were inculcated in, and it's just like what. Yeah, I mean, you live and die by that. You know, you know what I mean? I can't
Mm-hmm.
do anything about it, but at least I knew.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm.
Yeah.
Where did this conversation, like, which state, or were
Yeah,
you
yeah.
abroad?
This was Connecticut. Like you know what I mean? Like
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and
No, I was just
yeah,
curious, like, because I think,
yeah,
honestly, if Americans are honest, I think we can have these conversations anywhere
yeah.
in the
I agree.
world. It's not that it is solely an American problem.
Agreed.
However, and this is the big one, if Americans really start to talk and really want to learn
Yeah,
and really want change for
sure.
everybody, right? If
Yeah.
cumulatively, if if we are to succeed
Mhm.
in getting something for
Mhm.
Americans, we have to have the conversation about colonialism,
Sure. Mhm.
imperialism,
Mhm.
slavery, what happened to the indigenous
Mhm.
community, what happened with lynchings and the KKK,
100%.
and, you know, the civil rights movement. Jesus, there's
It's
so,
endless. Yeah,
so
it's
much.
endless.
It's
Yeah.
endless. But what I think is interesting right
Mhm.
now, and I've just said this not too long ago. I was like, what's interesting about the whole Trump thing?
Yeah.
He w- he was so awful, so
Mhm.
abrasive, and the choices he made to pick people to surround him that were like
Mhm.
him ripped off the Band-Aid in a way that America kind of needed.
I would say that checks out. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because it's like we were too comfortable. Like we were pretending for too
Yeah.
long. And I think, yeah, that was something I think for me trying to do the work, right? Because I have friends that are Black and Hispanic and like I would consider like really close
Mhm.
friends. And I know I can walk in different spaces than they can.
Yeah.
And therefore, I have to have hard conversations because I love these
Sure.
people, right? And I know if people that look like me don't really push the bar and have these conversations, we'll never get there.
Sure.
I know it's going to be hard. I know it's going to be a struggle, whatever. But like the moment demands it, right? Like
Mhm.
there were so many points throughout American history where it was like we were pushing up against it and then we didn't and we dropped the ball. And I think this is why I'm so critical of the Democratic Party right now, like as an
Sure.
example, right? Because once you get in and once you see how the sausage is made, as my one friend
Right.
says, and like, you
Yeah.
motherfuckers, like you're all the
Yeah.
same, all of you. And so when you start to see this stuff,
Yeah.
right? And then you start to break barriers, which I put myself in some really uncomfortable situations that are probably not as uncomfortable anymore because I do it a
Sure.
lot. Um, yes, I want to know how people think.
Mhm.
I'm not doing it to change them, much like what you did, right?
Yeah.
Like you're like, okay, I'm here. This is
Yeah.
happening. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Right. Um, Sometimes it does change people, or sometimes it just shifts the bar just enough, right? Like I had this conversation on another podcast about trans people, and I was like, it's kind of like this. Like, how do you feel comfortable? If you feel comfortable in that cowboy hat and that big belt buckle and like the boots, and that makes you feel good inside, and then you can continue about your day because, something about the way that that works for you lifts you up.
Yeah.
And then if you see someone that, say, needs to wear a dress or needs to wear red lipstick or heels to then make them have that same lifting up moment,
Yeah.
you have to sort of give examples for people where it's like, I get it. I get it that it offends you. I get it that it grosses you out or whatever. However, let's step outside of ourselves and try and understand the why. Like, how would you feel if someone told you You can't wear that belt
Hmm.
buckle. You can't wear that hat. You can't have those boots. You can't go in public or use the restroom if you're dressed like that. 9 times out of 10 people think they stop for a minute, right? And they're like, no, you're right.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that means that I convince them to think like me,
Right.
but I piqued their critical thinking. And you might have done that for that woman. Like, it might not be tomorrow, it might be 10 years from now, but she may come at a crossroads in her life where she's like, is it more important that I hold tight to this belief system,
Hmm.
or is it more important that I have a relationship with my daughter?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And like, it's very clear that, she's at that point of pressure and tension. And like I feel like if anything, it's really to promote that. Like just to put people in the pressure cooker. You know what I mean? Like what where they fall, like ultimately it comes down to them because, like you pay for what you decide based on the life that you lead, you know. So like, it's always a choice, but you know, especially like, being a black guy in America, I mean, I think, and maybe you've heard this, like being black is a very interesting experience because it's like you're very used to what people tell you versus what they show you. And it's like there is either this like complete disregard for like what you're going through or like how you're feeling, or like there is like this angling where it's just like, okay, like, yeah, I care, but then you don't really see it like reciprocated in a way that would make sense to you in any particular way. Like I'll give you an example. Like when
Mhm,
COVID was
mhm, mhm.
happening, and Black Lives Matter protests were happening all over the place. I remember I was here at a protest in Stamford, Connecticut, and there was, a protest that was specifically focused on a man named Stephen Barrier, who was basically neglected while he was in police custody, and he died while at the precinct. So, we had this protest, and we were going through the streets, and then towards the end, the organizers were saying, all right, everybody take a knee. Okay. So, we ended up taking a knee, and then there was this one guy in the back, black guy, and he was just like, F this shit. Like, he's like, this is stupid. He's like, why are we moving towards reconciliation already? You know what I mean? A man just died in police custody, and he's like, I've been in situations just like George Floyd. Like, I've had the knee on my neck. I've cried out for my mom as a grown man. Like, I'm not about this reconciliation. And I'm like, you know what? This dude actually has a point. So I stood up, and this young woman that, I'm sure in her mind she thought she meant well, she was a white woman. She was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "What do you mean, what am I doing?" And she's like, "You're fucking this up." And I'm like, "Fucking what up?" Yeah. You know what I mean? And it was just like, okay, you get what I'm saying? Like it seems one way, it's but like or do you really believe it? Like, are you actually about it? Or is this like quelling your guilt? Right. And like that's why I don't really find the need to feel like I need to like rescue somebody out of their beliefs. You know what I mean? Because I've just been in that situation enough times where I'm just like, I don't know if you're quelling your guilt or like you actually mean what you're saying, because I know that the price is high. You know what I mean? Like it really like requires you to like risk a lot, potentially lose more. You know what I mean? And like I don't think that's for the faint of heart. And it's just like, like that's an inheritance that is received too. And like, okay, you're on the winning side, sure, but it's just like, yeah, that winning side destroys everything else around you. And it's just like, everybody else is gonna like, they're telling you that you're destroying, as a byproduct sometimes, not even like deliberately. And it's like we're telling you, and you're like, nah, 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 we're good, we're good, we're good. And it's like, well, what kind of world does that bring about? You know what I mean? What's going to happen to you? What's going to
Mhm,
happen to you? Because if it happens to me, it's going to happen to you at some point. It's going to find you. And we see it. We see like all sorts of things in the news. Rising anxiety, depression, this, that, and the other thing, all sorts of conflict or whatever. Like it's all or nothing thing. You know what I mean? You're either in or you're out.
mhm.
But I just don't feel that anymore.
It's interesting that you're saying that because I kinda had this moment with the
Yeah.
protests. I feel there is a difference between the early protesters and the ones now.
Sure.
Not that it's not important to protest, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, it's like, this is going to sound
Yeah,
extreme,
go
but
for
this
it.
is
Go
just how
for
I
it.
feel. I did all the looking. I talked to all my friends that were abroad. Like, I did the homework of
Yeah.
like how to leave, where to go, how much money I need. Like, I was in the forefront of that. Like, my children need to be safe. They're looking to make camps here. I've got 3 little kids with autism. I have autism myself. I'm gay. I have a
Yeah.
child that wears dresses. I need to get us
Yeah.
out early. I had that conversation early and often.
Mm-hmm.
And then I watched things develop. Like, I took my kids to DC to the veterans protest, like March
Sure.
2025. Like, I was doing the early protesting, and then I hurt myself at
Yeah.
work. And then I couldn't physically do the protesting because I couldn't walk because I had this big brace on my
Yeah.
knee, and my knee's still messed up. Like, I can't chase my kids and stuff
Right.
like that. Like, it's just messed up. But watching these things
Yeah.
develop and trying to find, like, okay, what advocacy can I do?
Yeah.
Like, with my physical limitations, just as
Sure.
an
Sure.
example, like, I was constantly trying to figure out, what can I do? What can I
Yeah.
do? And so started the podcast. Didn't initially start with political stuff, just was doing more so like, okay, like autism
Sure.
advocacy, trying to educate people, inform people, awareness, stuff like
Mm.
that. But also weaving in different things, different elements that I thought were important, trying to highlight things as they came across my path, like trying to bring people into the podcast that were
Yeah.
different,
Yeah.
you know, and just provide that different perspective. And so I'm watching this thing develop, and I'm watching what's going on in the country. And then I hit this point where I'm like, for whatever reason, the US is always like the center
Yeah.
point, the boiling
Mm-hmm.
point. And I'm like, if we don't stop this shit here, it will
And I've
spread.
seen that like firsthand. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And so now, like, for example, I was cautious at first with Palestine because I had been to Israel. I had friends that were
Right. Likewise.
Israeli.
Yeah.
Hell, like my kid's baby donor was
Mm.
Jewish. Like, that wasn't necessarily like a planned thing. Like, I just picked the person that I thought was
Yeah. Right.
kind, right? And he just happened to be Jewish.
Right.
Like, wasn't a
Mm-hmm.
thing. But also, the other side of that, right, is as I learned and as I was becoming more aware, I felt the need to speak.
Yeah.
It wasn't immediate because I wanted to research and I wanted to make sure that I was right.
Sure.
Because I think it's also dangerous to speak too soon and not be sure, because you don't want to then backpedal, right?
Sure.
And I think that's part of my advocacy that I've learned pretty early on,
Yeah.
is like, you're not always going to get it right.
Sure.
If you make a mistake, admit it
Yeah.
and figure that out. But at least making a serious attempt to do the due diligence of doing the work and
Sure.
finding the research and
Sure.
whatever. So that's why I like all my posts and stuff like
Yeah.
that. For the longest time, I've tried to provide
Yeah.
sources and
Yeah.
stuff, because I don't want to be that guy,
Right.
right? This is like, oh, here, I said this thing. I want to give people the resources to then go back and read. Like, if you want to know where I got that quote, here's that
Sure.
article.
Yeah.
Because all of this was about education,
Yeah.
like making change through educating people,
Sure.
giving them a
Yeah.
voice. And then, seeing what's happening in Palestine, seeing it spread from Lebanon, Syria,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, seeing what's going on in like the Congo, Sudan,
Sure. Yeah.
lots and lots of stuff. And watching these governments just bend a knee and be unsure, right? And then watching like anybody speak up, it's like, oh, you're an anti-Semite.
Sure.
I'm watching this stuff develop, right?
Yeah.
And my brain, because I know, Native American
Sure.
history, my brain goes back there and I'm like, I need to help people connect the dots with this stuff. That like some of these ideas before Israel was ever a
Mm-hmm.
thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this stuff started here with
Yeah.
us. Other people around the world took thoughts and
Yeah. They studied.
ideas
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
watching the American shit show
Sure.
play out of
Yeah.
like, we have a
Mm-hmm.
genocide. that we can't say out loud, that we don't teach our children about. Like, we don't teach our children accurately about slavery.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't, I'm trying to think how I want to put it. It's intentional, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's intentional. And when you start as one individual, because I'm just one
Sure.
person, right? Like, I'm not here to save the world either, but I do know what happens when a person starts to peel back those layers and get curious, and
Sure.
then they start to have like thoughtful conversations with
Yeah.
people, right? And anyway, all of this led me into politics eventually because I'm like, these motherfuckers over here, like, they are the worst of
Yeah.
us. And, then you've got Epstein and you've got, all of a sudden you have, people like Swalwell that comes out. And it's just like the myriad of fucking
Yeah.
bullshit. That's like, all of you got to
Yeah.
go.
And that's again, like that's why I think it's just like it seems like such a futile endeavor for most people to like
Yeah.
really rake through that shit and like have to own up for something or like keep things in the know or any of those things.
Yeah.
Like it's not it goes against actually a lot of the tenets of American life and living, right?
Yeah.
The pursuit of happiness. Like you can't be happy
Mm-hmm.
if you know like how much that happiness costs, how much blood, like you have to actually like waste just to have a chance at that happiness or whatever, like
Mm-hmm.
I mean I could even think back to you were talking about education and kids. I used to work for a historical
Mm-hmm.
society, and I used to
Mm-hmm.
give like tours in a salt box mansion that was built by a Dutchman in the 1700s.
Uh-huh.
And this is in a town that is like like famously known for like hosting billionaires and millionaires, right? um but the board years ago had approved keeping the slave quarters as a part of the tour in the actual house, right? So like me giving it to like all these people who are like, very isolated and insulated, had to listen to me talk about like, the slave trade that was here, in a state that like no one would ever necessarily conflate with slavery. In a town that was once a sundown town as well. But I remember there was one day where I had a whole bunch of kids on the tour and a whole bunch of adults. And this one girl asked me, she said, "Hey, I have a question for you." And I said, "Yeah, go ahead and ask." She goes, "What did the slaves do in order to be slaves?" And I said, "What do you mean by that?" She goes like, what did they do? Because to me, and like mind you, she's like 10, very perceptive. She's like, "To me, it's a punishment, but I don't understand what they were being punished for." And I said, "Well, absolutely nothing." You know what I mean? Like this it was just a play. This was just capitalism. And I remember this woman came up to me afterwards and she was just like, "I didn't like that at all." And I said, "Well, why not?" "Well, it was terrible. Like to hear about that and, the slavery and this, that, and the other thing. Like, like every time I see a Mexican," she said this legitimately, "every time I see a Mexican or a native or a black person, I just want to open my wallet and give money." And her husband was sitting there. He's like, "Listen, I'm finished. I know what we do." You know what I mean? He just let her like, be dramatic or whatever. But like just hearing that, like really encapsulates how a lot of people are about it. Like I'd rather just find the quick fix to just get rid of it than to actually acknowledge the consequences of what has happened, you know? And it's just like I've had to deal with these people so much you have no idea. Like most people are just like they don't even get it. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
like, what the
I wish I could
fuck?
tell you the
But
things that
this,
people have told me just, like, without even thinking about it.
I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. But so
Yeah.
that is an example of what I mean when I talk to people
Yes.
about we must get the working class back in these
Sure.
positions because all of us are more alike than we are different. It is the
Mhm.
elites. They are the ones that are separate from us because they are the descendants of these type of
Mhm.
people, right?
Mhm.
And this is why I find it fascinating how like people, they don't want to know because it makes them uncomfortable and it ruins their perception of their own
Yeah.
reality, right? But something as simple as the fact that we have sitting members on the Supreme Court that have benefited generationally from
Sure.
slavery, and these people are the ones making the
Right.
rules for the entire U.S., and we can't even elect them, and they can serve there their entire
Right.
lives. Just the magnitude of just that one thing, right? Like, how in the fuck
hmm
can like 345 million people be under
Yeah.
this organization
hmm
essentially of multi-generational wealth and profit that came off the backs of Black and brown Americans like for
Oh, yeah.
generations. And you don't think that's baked into these people in some way, shape, or
Yeah.
form.
I mean, it's baked into everyone. You know what I mean?
But
Yeah.
like I said, like these are the
Yeah.
people making our
I know.
rules. They're the ones trying to give us our humanity about what they think
Right.
should
Right.
happen. I mean, it's just one thing. But when you speak about that like that, there's so many things like
Yeah.
that people are like, oh shit, I'm uncomfortable. It's like, yeah, step into that
Yeah.
uncomfortability because way back when they were feeding Black babies to like crocodiles and
Right.
alligators and they made ads
Right.
about it. Like, that was just like a normal thing. Like we're still lynching people.
Yeah.
You're not going to tell me for 1 second like these people didn't crawl up in that tree and hang
Right.
themselves,
Right.
stupid.
Like nothing ended,
But
really.
that in 2025 and 2026 that Black men are still swinging from
hmm
trees and people are calling it suicide and I'm like, get the
Right.
fuck out of here.
Right.
Like you don't even want to have that
Right.
conversation. Like you're not going to tell me for 1
Right.
second. Not for 1 second. And anyway, I
No,
could go off on a
I
total
know, but
tangent
like,
about that
like
stuff. But it's important to
it
have these type of
is.
conversations. It's like you
It
don't think
is.
like
It
really.
is. But like, being on, on a side of that issue, like it just gets tiring. You know what I mean? To always have to be responsible for the moral consciousness of others. Like I like you know what I mean? It
Yeah.
just gets exhausting to always have
Yeah.
to appeal to it, right? So like in effect, that's why I've become maybe more mentally like more of a maroon. You know what I mean? That's like my family's lineage, but it's just like just break off and procure the resources that you need to get on because like I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I have friends that they go off and they do these things and like they have the stamina for it and like like I will never be in their way and like I think that they're more up to date. I think they're more in the know about these things. You know what I mean? And I think they have more. I don't know. They're a lot more focused than I am because I'm always looking for alternatives. Um, but yeah, it's yeah. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
yeah, and there's no
There
clear
isn't.
answer,
Yeah.
right? Like here's where my autism plays in. Like my shtick is social justice. That is part of my diagnosis. Like that's sort of the tipping point for me. Like whenever I went to get diagnosed
hmm
and I had all the tests and all that, like we had that conversation
Yeah.
of like these are the things that you said that led me to determine that this is what is
Right.
going on.
Right.
And it was kind of like liberating, right? Because I was like, oh,
hmm
that's not a bad thing. And I need to lean into that.
Yeah.
And I think I spent so much of my life, right? Like with masking and whatever. And
Sure.
especially as a
I mean,
female,
yeah,
like,
yeah. I mean, I totally get that.
yeah,
Yeah.
like you just constant. It's constant. And so then when you give yourself permission to break free from that,
hmm
you have so much more time for everything
hmm
else. And I guess my fear, and this is why I jumped into politics,
Yeah.
right? Because I'm a normal person that's not a politician and I want things to be better, my fear that this will escalate into like a World War III sort of
hmm
situation and it will be unsafe for a lot of
hmm
people. is sort of determining
Mm-hmm.
this. But don't think for one second that I haven't also had that conversation with myself, and I also don't have my backup plan of like, "Hey, I tried and this is
Sure.
happening, and now I have to activate my other plan,"
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I guess what's extremely infuriating is like there's lots of talk
Mm-hmm.
and not enough
Mm-hmm.
action. And I always tell people like words are softer than
Sure.
bullets. So, what is your objective here? Like, what are you playing at? And I guess that's what pisses me off so much with the Democratic Party, right? Because I'm just like, what are you guys playing at
Mm-hmm.
here? Because you've had plenty of opportunity to do the right thing. And every time you don't,
Yeah.
right? And pick one,
Right.
right? You were supposed to be the party of the
Mm-hmm.
people. That is why I hypothetically align with you, and you are shitting the bed
Right.
here. And if both parties are corrupt and both parties are taken from the
Mm-hmm.
man, if we are not successful in these midterms, for example, then
Right.
what? And I know what then what
Mm-hmm.
means, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because people cannot be pressed for
No, they
so
cannot.
long and not have
Yeah.
action. And we've seen in this country, action always ends up
Mm-hmm.
bloody. And so that's why what I'm trying to avoid, because essentially I'm like, I want peace.
Sure.
I want us to live the type of humanity daily in our communities that is beneficial for one
Mm-hmm.
another. And it is possible. And the only thing essentially standing in the way of that, I'm greatly boiling this
Sure.
down, right?
Understood.
But
Yeah.
is these very, very rich people that they rebrand it every couple of generations, but essentially it's the
Mm-hmm.
same. They're exploiters, they're profiteers. They want to create feudalism again because everything for them is insatiable profit, and they will do it to any expense, at the expense of humanity, at the expense of the environment, wildlife, genocide, whatever. Like the system's always the same. Like the game's sort of always the same and it's rigged. And if I can convince as many regulars, or any normie
Sure.
people, as I call them,
Yeah.
to enlighten them to this, right? It's like, why are you doing what you're doing? What do you want to do?
Yeah.
What do you want from this? And just constantly be trying to spark that critical thinking, like, right. And I think I had a lot of stuff happen
Yeah.
in like a short amount of
Yeah.
time that really broke me down as a person. And
Sure.
then I had to make choices, and I had to decide, like, who am I? What am I about? What do I stand for? What do I want to teach my
Yeah.
kids? And it's constantly evolving, right? I
Sure.
mean, I'll probably never be
Yeah.
there,
Probably not.
but at
Right.
least trying, right? And then I want to I want people around me that are about that. They're about that
Yeah.
noise. And I am constantly leaning into that and trying to find those people. Anyway, hence why you're here.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. We definitely spun the block on quite a few things. Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same way. You know what I mean? I guess I just go about it in terms of like I guess my focus is more so on the individual. You know what I mean? Because like I think in regards to your focus on education especially, um like education is not just knowing things or being critical or this that and the other thing, but I think it also has to be an understanding of how to manage power, right? Because I think that is something that always is like not included in education, right? And like it's a weird thing to say, but if you think about it, like no one ever really talks about, yeah, what does it mean to manage power? Whether over an organization, whether over yourself or something like that. So it's just like, how can you do that in a very small way? You know what I mean? How could you build up your ecosystem? How could have, a certain power and mastery over yourself? And then how does that work up the line? Right? Because like for me, I'm more butterfly effect, because it's just like I see things very cyclically. So it's like I understand that, like, you get to a point, and then like at some point maybe those who were the heroes become the ops, like that's happened many, 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 many times. But like when it comes to just like the person developing in a certain type of way, Like that's the thing that I'm interested in. So it's like, one of those things, coming from the civil rights movement and something that, most of my friends have heard me talk about. It's like, like economic power is something that I want to like, have a certain emphasis on, not so much for the point of just like simply like, getting rich or anything like that. But I think like having the ability to have a container in which you could, start gathering your own resources is important because, you know, the reliance that we have on these people that you're saying, like, in a lot of the ways, it's a part of the problem, and it's been a part of the problem because, we've moved from a world where people were able to, you know, build their own things, have their own things, go for their own things. And some people would say, well, yeah, we've done that, and they burn it down all over again. And I'm like, yeah, I understand that. Like, I'm not, I can't be ignorant of that fact. But I mean, what's the alternative? You know what I mean? When you're on this teat forever and it's like it never pushes the needle in any direction you need it to go for yourself. So I'm just like, so what can you as an individual do to maintain and manage power? And then how does that transcend into something larger? You know, I have not, thought about the full breadth of what that means or anything like that. I'm still kind of just like working on that in public. Um, but yeah, like power has been something that has been just like really in my mind because I just think that too often we just have one definition of too many things. You know what I mean? Uh,
Well, that is a through point, right?
mhm.
Like, because if you want to talk about, want to see how I want to
Sure.
say this, whether it's rape, child molestation, um, abuse in the
Yeah.
workplace, any of those things, ultimately everything boils down to power, the haves
Correct.
and the have nots, the people that are the exploiters, the people that are being
Yeah.
exploited. And yes, ultimately, you have to figure out a way to take that power back. And you have to figure out a way to like check yourself out of the system
Yeah.
to
To
some
some capacity.
capacity.
Yeah.
And like everybody's got a different skill
Hmm.
set, right? Um, but yes, we're at this pivotal point in history where you have to essentially decide. Like you have to have those hard conversations with yourself, right? Like, do I like feudalism?
Sure.
Do I want to be a cog in that
Hmm.
machine? How far can I go? Because obviously, yes, we all have
Hmm.
needs, right? But the only time that change happens is through adversity.
Yeah.
Like, you never get anywhere without being uncomfortable and pushing the bar. And that means
Hmm.
sacrifice, right? Like, everybody's level is different. I'm not here to tell people what they should be
Hmm.
doing, right? But what I will say is, anytime you get that gut feeling that's like, I'm too
Yeah.
comfortable or I could do more, kind of listen to that gut
Yeah.
response. And also, right, like, because these things, like, it's a marathon, not a
Sure.
sprint. And for those of us that like desperately want change, to constantly be surrounding ourselves with good people that will keep us
Yeah.
truthful, that can pull us back. Like, let's say one of us gets a little too far into whatever it is that we're doing, and we have a good
Yeah.
objective. But to have those friends that can be like, listen, I love you, and this is coming from a place of love, but I think you should step back a bit or not push too hard. And that's one thing I have learned through some of the things in my life is I was always a bit type A.
Mm.
And sometimes I'd be like, but I just need to do the thing or get it done or whatever. Ultimately, I was successful in a lot of
Yeah.
ways, but there was a breaking point. And so now what I do is I try and listen to that inner compass and I'm like, okay, am I pushing too hard? Like, is it becoming too hard? Do I need to like let the universe take the reins a bit?
Sure.
And it's still not perfect, right? But that's kind of how I'm navigating my life right now. I'm like, does it feed my soul? Does it feed someone else?
Sure.
Sort of thing. Am I affecting change from a positive perspective, or is it an ego-based sort of thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then at what point do you say no? Because I think that's the thing with Americans that they never really teach us, right? Like, they never tell you, but you can just stop. You can just say no. You can just withdraw yourself from the
Sure.
situation.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a point, but I think it's that baked in Puritan kind of life model that like hasn't quite left us yet. You know what I mean? Like destroying yourself at all costs is like is the mode for like how you get on in life. And yeah, I mean to step away from all of that, it's a multi-layered, multi-level issue, right? And it's just as complex as the country is itself, and it's just like working through that. Like I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I understand that people have models and they say they could try this, you could do this, you could do that. But I mean, like, you're always going to find at some point where it just, it delivers you to a point, and then it's just like you gotta adapt, you gotta change again. It delivers you to a point and you gotta adapt to change again. But I think that I don't think that we're going to be able to avoid that any longer, like not just because of social and political pressures, but it's just like also just technological pressure. You know what I mean? Like we're like, I've been kind of touting this around as an idea that I'm really like, honing in on. It's like, we're really in an age of novelty. It's like, by the time you're even learning the things that you should learn, there's like a million things that you like still have to learn. And then by the time you catch up, there's still so many things that have come forward. um and it's just like, how do you dance through that? And it's like, yeah, like you're going to have to develop something like discernment. You know what I mean? Which is another thing that I don't think it's taught at all. You know what I mean? Like when to just say no. Or like like, like in terms of priority, like this cannot be my focus. Like I cannot be everywhere. I actually have to like now lock in on maybe three things. You know what I mean? And then like really go deep on those. Like, and you're right, it comes at that sacrifice. And that's why I said, like, there has to be, not globally, but to some effect, there has to be some allowance for like, people just not knowing something, because it's just too much. It's just like, we're at a period where it's just like there's like an overwhelm of just information. And to me, like, it's like the new thing, right? Like before you could just keep information in full sight, and like, you just remove the ability to access that information. And now that problem is flipped on its head. I'm just going to overwhelm you with everything, so that way I could tell you the truth. I could give you the truth. But yet you don't have the discernment to even know like what it really is. I could give you 50 million perspectives on one particular topic. And now you have to like figure it out. Like that's not easy.
Yeah, but I guess that's why I'm always kind of going back to this
Yeah.
thing of you have these ultra rich
Mhm.
people that have sort of always controlled
Mhm.
whatever it is,
Mhm.
right? And so the only way to be truly free, if you
Mhm.
will, is to find a skill set,
Mhm.
like a very basic skill set, right? Like, let's say you're a good human connector
Sure.
or you're a good
Mhm.
carpenter, like something that is essential for people. Like maybe you're a great
Mhm.
baker, and then boil that down to the most simplistic way possible. So like let's say everything goes. Let's say you're from
Mhm.
scratch, right? If you're a
Right.
baker, as an example, which I am not a great baker, but these are skills that I was trying to develop during
Sure.
COVID because we all
Right.
were learning
Right.
new
Right.
things. It's like, right, how do you like bake bread outside over an open flame sort of thing? Like, I think it's refreshing that people are sort of dabbling in these types of things of like, maybe I'm going to try canning.
Yeah.
Like maybe I'm gonna make jelly. I don't know. What it could
Yeah.
be whatever. But just have this tethering sort of thing to either nature or the earth that can walk alongside
Mhm.
technology so that you always have some sort of tether to the earth. And those people that are not
Yeah.
doing that, I think those are the people that are extremely unhappy because they don't know how to get there. And humans, just in
Mhm.
general, like, we have to find a way to live with the earth. Like, it's impossible for us to not do that. So the farther and farther we get away from those type of things where it's like, we don't need that,
Sure.
but people, it's like they forget that, like, we all live on this planet.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I know that's very, very simplistic,
Yeah.
right? But that's how it seems. Like, whenever you hear like Elon Musk or
Yeah.
Peter Thiel, and they're
Yeah.
talking about all kinds of
Sure.
crazy
Yeah.
shit, and you're like, but at the end of the day, like, if we all find a way to take care of this
Mhm.
planet that we are currently
Yeah.
on, wouldn't that be better
You you would
for
think
all of
so.
us?
You would think so, but, I just think that, one, arriving at simplicity is, like, very difficult, and accepting simplicity is just as difficult. Like, like, when you tell somebody how to
Yeah.
do something, they're like, "Really? That's it?" It's like, "That's it." They're like, "No, I have to, like, work out this workflow, and I have to do this, and I have to." You know what I mean? It's like never just like, yeah, like, you wanna
Yeah.
do something, just talk to somebody and say, "Hey, I have this. Do you want it?" And it's like, "No, no, 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 no. I have to work out a system." Like, you know? Um yeah, like, I don't know why that is. I think it just comes from the fact, maybe, that, kind of like parallel to what you were saying. I just think that life has become too abstracted. You know what I mean? Like, a death
Hmm.
is not really a death because you can't see it or feel it. It's a headline a lot of the time, you know?
Yeah.
Or, like,
Yeah.
just the era that I grew up
Yeah.
in of the internet, like, it's just like there was just always just like killings and murders and all sorts of stuff on the internet, that it's like you just become so desensitized to it. Like, what is it? What is
Mm,
it? How are you being pulled to it? Like, we don't understand, like, the cost
mm.
of, like, filling up your meat section at your grocery store. Like, like, these things just appear
Yeah.
out of
Yeah.
nowhere. You know what I mean? And we're just like, yeah,
Hmm.
whatever. Like,
Hmm.
it's 6 chicken breasts. It's not that I think that, like, 3 chickens were murdered for that. It's just chicken breasts. Like, um, so you're right. Like, there has to be some way of bringing people back into, like, things that are actually tangible, and stuff like that. And I see people making that movement,
Hmm.
but what it
Hmm.
is that I see is just like, I see people who are just like really just like doubling in on just like, yeah, I'm just gonna be like as technological as I could possibly be. I see some people who are just like,
Yeah.
you know what, I'm consciously choosing not to do this, and I'm just gonna stay on this side. And it's really just the people in the middle that I see really, like, suffering more than anything else. Honestly, the people who
Hmm.
just can't
Hmm.
decide where they want to go, or, like, they're trying to find a balance, but it's just too hard to do, for a
Hmm.
multitude of reasons. So, yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I mean, like, more than anything else, like, I tell people straight up, like, I'm in the age where I'm trying to find the real, like, miracle of being ignorant. You know what I mean? Because it
Hmm.
leaves you open to just say, I don't know, and then you just listen. You know what I mean? Instead of just, like,
Hmm.
always trying to grab at the right thing to say and the right thing to do. Like, I just know, I just automatically assume I'm wrong most of the
Hmm.
time. And I just, like, use other people's perspective to just sharpen what I'm thinking. You know what I mean? And then, like,
Hmm.
if it doesn't work, then I throw it out, and, like, like, I don't know. Like, I wish I had
Yeah.
more than that, but, like, I'm just, like, the chill guy. You know what I mean?
No, but I think there's
Yeah.
gold in that, right? And I think, not to bounce back to the
Sure,
campaign, but
sure,
just as
sure.
an example, right? Like, it's a blessing and a
Yeah.
curse that I didn't know what the hell I was
Sure.
doing, and I still
Yeah.
don't, right? Because I am, like, truly and authentically
Sure.
myself. So that's how I'm stepping into this thing, is like, right, what I've seen
Yeah.
work with people in
Yeah.
general is authenticity. But you have to be truthful with yourself, and you have to be truthful with other
Yeah.
people, and learning and developing along the way. And that's not, oh, hey, I heard this thing that you said, and I think that's great, and I'm going to, like, manipulate my argument to basically kind of sound like something of
Yeah.
what you said. No, it's like you said, like the sharpening of yourself, and either
Yeah.
listen, listen first. I had a conversation the other day. Um, this person, I don't know. I'm, like I said, I'm a different beast. Like, we get on this, we start talking, me and this person,
Yeah.
and they are like, and da 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 about this thing that I'm doing, and what do you think? And
Yeah.
I'm like, I think it's great.
Mm,
They're like, really? And yeah, no, like I'm here to learn
yeah.
from you. You're telling me about a thing
Yeah,
that I don't know
exactly.
about, so I'm
Exactly.
listening.
Exactly.
And by the end of the conversation, this person was like, I really like you. And I was like, I really like
Yeah,
you too.
and
And we just had this conversation, then we trade phone numbers, and I like that about the type of things that I'm doing
sure.
because I like the building of
Mhm.
relationships because that's how I think you get
Yeah.
things done, right? Like when you say, I don't know, like I've been told that I'm a great human connector, and apparently that is a
Yeah.
good thing. So I'm very much stepping
Right.
into that, and I'm always that person like, I know a
Right.
guy, and I love that. If someone talks to me about something and then I'm like, I'm going to connect you with so and so. And then I start to talk to him about, oh, whether it's through the podcast or something else.
Yeah.
I'm horrible with names. I'll remember a face for my lifetime and I will always remember like the
Sure.
conversation, right? Like that's why I called you out on that
Yeah.
bit because I was like, he talked about this thing very
Mhm.
passionately and it seemed like he really wanted to do it. And therefore, I need to
Yeah,
encourage him.
and I agree. I mean, here we are.
Yeah.
And
And
here we
here we
are.
are.
Yeah. No, I'm with that. I'm with that 100%. And yeah, I just think that, we're just in that time where it's like, psychology has to kind of change. um
Hmm.
and it's not easy, like, most days I feel like psychologically I'm gonna collapse underneath the weight of like everything that's just being thrown at me on a daily basis, like, and
Yeah.
it's like I'm impressed when I see other people like they already have a decision, an opinion, they
Mm,
or like a counter argument to what's I'm like, how do you already have this? Like, I don't know how you're doing this. um but
mm,
yeah, I just think, there's a certain level of flexibility and dexterity that's involved. And just to go back to what you were saying, now that you've stepped out and you're doing
yeah.
things authentically, you remind me of something that Anais Nin had once said, I believe in one of her diaries,
Mhm,
where she said that your world expands in direct proportion to your level of courage. You know what I mean?
mhm. I would agree
Yeah,
with
but I
that.
mean, I've seen it for you. You know what I mean?
Oh, well,
Yeah,
thank you.
like it's always so amazing to see. And when I told other people that I'd be doing this, they're like, "Oh, so like how do you know this person?" Like I gave the whole story and they're like, "And they're doing what now?" And I'm like, "Yeah, like, like yeah, like, it's like I
Yeah.
love stuff like that, you know what I mean? It's you never know.
Well, there needs to be more of this kind
Yeah.
of thing. Like, whatever I mean, the boxes don't have to be the same, that's what's
Yeah.
beautiful about it, right? Like, because we all I would say it is more the human experience that we don't know,
Sure.
right? And the curiosity is the magic
Right.
sauce to this, right? Like, we need to make sure that we are encouraging that in
Yeah.
others. So when someone comes to us and is like, I don't know, I'm so frustrated, whatever, like, we're not probably going to get it right. But if we at least spark some bit of curiosity in them, and it could be something simple like a book, right?
Sure.
Like, oh, well, you're talking about this thing. How, like, have you ever read that book? Or do you
Sure.
read? And if you don't read, do you listen to podcasts? Or, if you don't like either and you like more in person
Yeah.
stuff, have you thought about like joining a
Sure.
group for
Sure.
something?
Yeah. No,
Anything.
I'm with you. I mean, I've been such an evangelist for Substack. You know what I mean? I think in the past like 2 years, I've probably gotten like 10 people to go on it. And I'm like, who cares? You know what I mean? You have a
Yeah.
perspective, so which means that you see something in a way that no one else sees out of the 8 billion of us, plus the ones who have like also
Hmm.
have shared their opinions or perspective and have died. Like, it's
Yeah.
yours. You know what I mean? And you have no idea how it'll
Yeah.
travel. And like I'm really about that. Like, the plurality of things that people can offer. Like I'm tired of just kind of
Hmm.
this like bottlenecked way of living where it's like you need an expert to say everything. Like I understand that they have a place. I'm not saying like, forget the experts.
Hmm.
But like
Hmm.
I just think
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like being an expert sometimes it's like it's just a bubble. Like, there's other information that's out there
Hmm.
that other people have access to and they could like, they could counter your point and have something else to say and even sharpen you as a result.
Hmm.
Um And like
Mhm.
that's what I want to see, like again. But again, like it's risky
Mhm.
because it means putting yourself out there at one end, but like also being
Mhm.
subject to criticism, and it's like, yeah, like,
Mhm.
especially in our age where we're so like obsessed with being right and being correct and being proper and all these things that like,
Mhm.
you don't want to do that. It's uncomfortable. Sometimes it hurts. It feels like death and dying. But I don't see what else we have because this safety that we have
Yeah.
is not doing it. Safety has never really done it. You know what I mean?
Something happened the other
Yeah.
day that I wasn't surprised at the way I reacted, but I think that person was,
Okay.
right? So this I put some post out there and this person basically responded back and whoever was like, "Trailer Park Tabitha." Now I know that when I filed my candidacy, I had to put
Yeah.
down an address, which was my address. And I know people can go and like do the little Google
Sure.
Zoom or whatever. Maybe 10 years ago, I would have been like, "Oh my God, I can't believe they
Yeah.
said that. That's so hurtful," or whatever. But my response then was, "Do you feel better?"
Mm. I'm with that.
And I
I'm with
meant it, not from the perspective of like, "Oh, I want to hurt you by saying that," but more from the perspective of, this actually doesn't bother me. Like, I'm perfectly content to live in a tent as long as other people have things. Like, I'm not that guy that you can insult that way, sort of thing, right? Like, I've seen enough and I've traveled enough and I've elevated enough in myself to know what is not
Yeah.
important. And things like feeding people is
Super.
important, making sure that people have housing is
Mhm.
important. Um, if someone is unclear about those sort of things, that's for them to work
Yeah.
out.
I mean, yeah. I'm with that. Yeah, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I just think we've become such a callous sort of society, right? Where it's like we're reactionary now, like we're reactionary to fling the insults because that's going to make us feel better
Yeah.
as humans. But at the end of the day, I think it really probably settles in and makes us feel worse
Yeah.
because what like you're expending energy to do the
Right.
insult part,
Right.
right? But you're not drawing back any positive and like energy back to yourself.
Right.
Like this needs to be a movement, a conversation. And like you said, it has to be cyclical. So if you're not actually getting anything from that, it doesn't
Well,
serve
right.
you.
But back to the whole management of power, right? It's like it's just the last bastion where
Yeah.
people think that power is. Like I could anonymously tear at
Mm.
your, emotional state. Like
Yeah.
that's all I got. Like, you know
Right.
what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's the only
Yeah, that's
song
all
and
I
dance I
got.
have. Like I can only tear you
Yeah,
down.
and then
Yeah.
that actually makes me like that actually, and I'm not saying this
Yeah.
just to be whatever. Like I really mean it. Like that legitimately makes me
Same.
sad for people, right? That
Same.
like
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like you're sitting behind your
Right.
computer trying to tear someone down because you think that will make you
Right.
feel better.
And it's
But
right.
does it? Like what are you actually contextually getting from that? Whenever like realistically, you probably could be spending your time doing something for you. Like, is this for you? Is it
Yeah.
really? Like, are you developing a skill? Are you finding
Yeah.
some way to bring yourself
Yeah. No,
peace?
like I'm with you on that. And I mean, yeah. I mean, I've had multiple instances in which like, people have come for me at one way or another. And then like, my first question is kind of
Mhm.
similar to you. I'm like, yo, you good? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like,
Yeah, can
yeah, I'm
we
just like, are you
continue?
no, I'm not even that. I'm just like, are you good though? And they're like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "No, like,
Mhm,
are you okay?" And I just keep on asking until they just like eventually are just like, "Yeah, like I'm good. Like, what the hell?" And then like it always leads to this conversation where they're like, "Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just kind of messed up." And like, they have this whole like life story about, like all these things that they're dealing with and how everything is
mhm,
sideways and
mhm.
like, they just did it because,
Yeah, they're
yeah,
angry.
it's parallel to like, the guy that cat calls across the way. They don't actually expect you to come over. You know what I mean? It's just like peacocking. You know what I mean? It's just like,
Yeah.
like, because you actually show up, some of these guys they just freeze. They're like, "Oh my god," like I didn't expect you to come over here. I'm so sorry. Like, yeah, well, sometimes, right? But, but
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, I know. I mean, we're entering into
Right.
a whole new
Yeah, I
world
mean,
of
it's especially with recent news,
craziness.
Jesus. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we need
Yeah. How do you feel about that as a man? Like, how do you feel about there being a raping website out there that 62 million dudes are raping their wives? And
yeah.
like, how does that make you feel as a man?
Man.
Because we had this conversation
Y-
early, right, about what it means to be a
Yeah,
man.
I mean, I can't even put it into words. Um, just being a person who is friends with so many women who've been assaulted,
Hmm.
and to think that like there was an actual education. You know what I mean? Like there's an actual like
Hmm.
system being put in place to
Hmm.
to like do this with like some level of efficacy and if like I can't
Hmm.
I just don't know where we are that would be a thing.
Well, I'm going to tell you a
Yeah.
little story. It's not necessarily mine to tell,
Yeah.
but I'll tell it in a way that is respectful as
Sure.
much as I can. I was married to someone that had this
Yeah.
happen to them, and the person was never brought to account for it at all. And said person that did this thing had taken photos and video of her when she was passed
Yeah.
out and were also part of the criminal investigation, and it still wasn't
Mm.
enough for the police department. Now, this didn't even happen here. This happened in Ireland. So this is not a thing that's
Right,
just happening in
exactly,
the
yeah.
States. And this happened years ago. And it's astonishing to me, right? That now, and this thing, when it came out, it really
Yeah.
triggered me because this person sent those pictures to me because he was trying to inflict maximum
Uh,
pain. And it makes me think, after I read some of this stuff, right? It makes me think, wow, this is the
yeah.
standard. So, like, guys like you having empathy and compassion is actually the smaller percentage
I'm
of men.
realizing that. Yeah.
And that thing, right? Like, that part of it for me, and that there are so many men that are police officers that are doing the investigations of said
Mhm.
crimes, that then they are the ones primarily like determining that these things are not prosecuted. Our systems, not in just the US, around the world, are so
Yeah.
broken because anyway, there needs to be a rise of the matriarchy. This
Yeah.
shit, like across the
Yeah.
board, has to stop. It's been too much this year, and it has highlighted a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I will not go as far as to say that we should only vote for women. I mean, that is my like knee jerk response, but I am aware there are plenty of women that are still in the patriarchy that don't see it
Yeah.
that way,
Yeah.
right? That will also say things like, well, what did they do? What were they
I
wearing? Blah,
don't
blah, blah.
like that, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we have to find people like for elected positions, for example, because this is kind of how this starts. And it can be very, like the smaller positions, it can be like a trustee or a
Mhm.
sheriff or whatever. Like we have to be paying attention to how they interact with other
Mhm.
people and how they carry themselves in their communities. Um, this thought process of I was just joking sort of thing has to
Yeah.
stop. Like, we have to be present minded as men and
Mhm.
women, right? Because the kids are watching us. And this whole like rape culture
Mhm.
shit, like, the only reason it has continued is because of that stuff. It's because of men and women that don't put their foot down and say, you know what? Like, that's actually not
Yeah.
funny. Like, I get that maybe at one time that was more acceptable, but it's not
Yeah.
acceptable now. Like, sort of same with like the R word or the N word, where it's like, hey, I get
Mm.
it. And I get maybe at one time that was acceptable, but we don't say those words anymore. Like, we need to have those type of conversations about this stuff where it's like, right, what are we going to actively do to seriously try and prevent this, because this
Yeah.
has to stop.
Yeah, I'm with that. I'm with that. And I find it interesting the nuance that you put to that as well. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. But I I, I just have no
To
words. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, like, I am finding people that are like-minded, that are in these
Hmm.
candidates, right? Like, when all the stuff with Swalwell came out, I am in a group chat with some people, and I was like, "Listen, guys, like, it can't be just the women calling this out. Like, we need the white, straight males to come out in mass and say, no, you can't do
Hmm.
this. You need to, step down. Like, I'm not here to tell you what to say, but you guys have to start to say something." And I will say, there were a handful of them that did. And I was like, bravo. It made me feel good that
Yeah.
they did. And I think, like, that's part of the moment, right? Like, we have to lean into those moments of, can we affect change? Like, are we sitting at a table where we
Hmm.
can? And it might just be as simple as, like, maybe you're a high level executive, and maybe, it's always made you feel uncomfortable that, you have a female coworker that's been sexually harassed for 5 years. I
Yeah.
don't know. But, like, in those moments, we have to stand up and be like, I know this has been going on for 5 years, but it's not okay, and I should have said something earlier, but I'm saying
Yeah.
something now.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I'm with you on that, And yeah, it doesn't even just have to be at a table. It's just anywhere. Just
Yeah.
anywhere.
Anyway.
Like anywhere.
Yeah, we're
Table.
just using that as an
Yeah, yeah,
example, right?
yeah.
Like, any myriad of
Yeah.
examples of
Yeah.
bullshit. You just have to, as a human
Yeah.
being now, like, you have to say
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. 100%. Wow.
The silence is deafening from people
Yeah.
right now.
It is. It is. In more ways than
Yeah.
one. In more ways than one.
That's what I'm saying. There's a
Yeah,
myriad of
like in
issues.
more
It's the
ways than one. Yeah.
silence. Yeah, because the silence is complicity. And I think that is the part for me that is the most disturbing. I know it's hard. I get it. I know it's hard to, like, stand
Mhm.
up, but, like, if there was ever a moment, pick a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, pick a thing. Yeah, I'm with that. I'm with that. Like pick a thing, anything. Um,
Mhm.
you know, it's I mean we have more available to us than ever before to even do that. You know what I mean? And
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what I'm hoping for. And like I was saying before, like I just really want to see plurality make more of its appearance in things, plurality
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
work, opinion, political angling, anything. Like, you know,
Mhm.
now is the
Mhm.
time because it's like we have it for a lot of things that don't matter, so why couldn't we do it for things that do
Mhm.
matter? And what
Right.
could that mean? I wouldn't dare to make an image of it because like I don't know. Most things, like I said, I'm wrong about, but it's something. You know what I mean. There's value in it, and I don't think that value has one address. You know what I mean? We're
Mhm.
often conned into thinking that like value can only make an appearance in one way. But I honestly just want to blow that idea to shit. Like any student. Any
Yeah, me
student
too.
that I had, anybody who I talk to, and they're like, "Oh, I just don't feel that I could fill in the blank." I'm like, "Prove it." Like
Do it.
not even do it. Like I love to build tension first. I'm just like prove to
Yes, I
me that
gotcha.
you can't do it. Like,
Yeah.
tell me what's in the way, and we'll
Yeah.
we'll we'll see if it's there, and it's just like little,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
like,
just
what's
little
stopping
acts of
you?
defiance, like you know what I mean, like it's like I understand the fear of failure and like how awful rejection feels and all those things, like I'm feeling it more than ever these days, but there's just something. There's just something to be done. Like, just take back ownership of your own value. Like, stop sipping the Kool-Aid of you're going to be replaced by AI. Stop sipping the Kool-Aid that like these people are just fucking your life over. Therefore, there's nothing you could do. There's nowhere to go. There's no like, like it's just like it's that cutoff from humanities. You know what I mean? It's like you don't
Yeah.
even know what we've been capable of. Like, you're not even close to understanding what we've done. Like, you see these like, tech bro rock stars, and you're like, oh yeah, they're doing something. Like, dude, we've done so much. And then some, and it's just never made it to you, you know. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah, it's exhausting, it's exciting, it's everything. But yeah, I'm kind of like an evangelist these days. I'm just like, do something. I feel like Shia LaBeouf from back in the day. You know what I mean? Just screaming in front of a green screen, telling people to do it. Like, just do it.
But didn't Shia LaBeouf recently
Hell
get
yeah.
arrested for beating
Mardi Gras.
someone up?
Yeah. Right.
So, as we're talking about cyclical things, to be a
Yeah.
person that was probably trying to make positive change to then cycle into
Becoming the
something
ops.
like
Yeah.
that.
I mean, yeah, pretty much.
Talk about
Talk about
power.
power. A lot of us don't know how to manage it. Yeah, I mean, because like I've
Hmm.
listened to his
Hmm.
life story, and I'm like, yeah, like this dude was like, his father was basically pimping him out from a young age, and then it's just like he just developed no
Hmm.
control over like anything he had going for him. He's just like, oh well, I was making 8,000 a week on this show on Disney Channel. I thought I was rich and I was doing all this stuff, and then it's just like, to be that young and to have all this around you and whatever,
Yeah.
it's like no
Yeah.
excuse, but it's just like, um we also need that, that learning of like, okay, what does it mean to manage power? And back to where we started, it's like, the humanities, like learn like like, the condensed wisdom of everything, that we've ever gone through or we've
Hmm.
ever done. Pick a nationality, pick an ethnicity, whatever. Like, there's just so many
Hmm.
different ways in
Hmm.
which you could learn about your own power and like what it means to actually exact change and like what change actually means and what it can be. And you get to see that it's not a monolith. There's just so many different ways of doing it, from making a
Hmm.
farmer's market all the way to running for office. It could be so many
Hmm.
things, and it matters, and there's value. I mean, we all could think about being a child, and it's just like there's like one teacher that just like saw you and you were like, oh my God, like, and then you just did something with your life, or that one person that worked
Hmm.
a
Hmm.
cashier, cash register. Like, for me, it's Liz at the Trader
Hmm.
Joe's, like like 40 minutes from here. Like, she would just always hug me and
Hmm.
squeeze me and just be like, oh, I love you so much. And it's just like, people look at us and they're like, this is weird, but it's just like, like,
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
matters, you know?
Well, I've heard a lot of good things from Trader
Yeah.
Joe's. Actually, like it's not the first time that I've heard something like that. And just think about that, for example, right? Like that you work in a
Hmm.
place that makes you feel that you can
Right.
do that and still
Right.
work there.
Right. That
That
does
says
say something.
something. Hell, I might want to
That's what
work
I'm
at Trader
saying.
Joe's.
Like,
Shit. Like,
that level of love is just so, you know, it's rare, unfortunately,
yeah.
it's rare.
Yeah.
That feeling of love is rare. Right back to
Mm-hmm.
Baldwin,
Mm-hmm.
love is not a popular movement. But when it's there, it's so like life affirming. You know what I mean? And just like so life
Mm-hmm.
saving. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just like when I can, I try to do that. You know what I mean? No matter where I go, I try to do
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I guess what I want for
Yeah.
everybody, right? Like through my life experience, through all the ups and downs and whatever, like the things that really stick out that I hope that I bring to people or rub off on people is like there's only one you, and be your most authentic self and ride that ship into the ground.
Exactly.
Like I don't care what your thing is, like I don't care how you dress, I don't
Yeah.
care who you love, like just be you because the world needs more
Right.
magical people.
I'm with that 100%. 100%.
Well, we've been talking for a
Yes.
long time. I have
So
loved
have I.
this.
Yeah.
And because you are such an avid
Yeah.
reader and the type of things that we've been talking about, if you can give people a list
Oh
of
boy.
books that
Yeah,
right,
yeah, go for it.
I know. I mean,
Yeah.
and you can always give me some later because
Yeah.
I'm
Hold
happy
on
to
one
do
second.
that too. But maybe just like anything off the top of your head, right? That you're like, maybe 2 or 3 books that were just totally transformative for you that you think would be helpful to people right now?
First one, without question, I would say is Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. It's a short read, but
Okay.
it really shows you the importance of like, if you don't have love or if you don't know how to love in life, you're actually like a particularly dangerous person and you're in danger. Um, oh man, what's another book that really got me going? I want to say if you really want to get to the deep of like how brutal America can be through fiction, not for the
Okay.
light of heart, you know.
Okay.
Lord of Dark Places by Hal Bennett.
Okay.
And if I were going to do a third one, yeah, I'm probably gonna go back to Baldwin. I'm not gonna lie to you. Another country,
Okay.
just to learn about the
Okay.
collisions of the ways in which we intersect, you know, and to think that just because you think that you're doing something right doesn't mean you're necessarily doing something right. So it's like taking that time to reconsider, but just also knowing how the pieces fit or don't, you know, across American landscape. But I think it also translates to something, you know, greater. Just a story about humanity in general.
You know, something that I always loved, and, you know, I'm probably not going to get it exactly right, so feel
Yeah.
free to correct me. But I remember hearing Baldwin say in one of these interviews, essentially, that he loves America so much that it is his obligation to
Yep.
critique her and
Correct. Yeah.
criticize her,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
felt that deep in my
Mhm.
soul, you know, like that's how
Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
too.
So you're on the right path. You know what I mean? I think we both are. Yeah.
Hopefully. Well, I mean, hopefully we've inspired some people today. And the
Yes.
last thing, um, because we've talked about so many things today, if people don't remember anything else, what is one thing that you really want them to take away from this episode of like who you are? Like, who is Chad
Oh.
Ennis?
Hmm. I could probably whittle it down just to just one line. Three
Okay.
words. Just say yes. That's all I got.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah.
I think that's great. Well, hey, Chad, it was a
Yes. Likewise.
pleasure. I hope
Yeah.
you'll
Of
come
course.
back because I think there's a
Of
lot more
course. Yeah.
there. So you are
Mm.
always
All
welcome
right. I
anytime.
love that. We'll keep in touch. Yeah.
Awesome. Let's do that. Well, everybody, thanks for listening in. If you want to like and subscribe and share, we'd appreciate it. And we'll see you later. We are at a pivotal point in American history. We do not have the luxury to remain silent. Programs are disappearing every day. We hope that this podcast raises awareness and sparks a sense of advocacy in you. We all can make a difference. The important thing is to start. See you next time.